particular point, you had asked about the 13 positions and the status. This goes under budget amendment. I will defer to the business administrator at this particular point.
Thank you.
Through you, Council President. I know that there has been some discussion since the last council meeting where it was left somewhat open-ended about the direction that the CFO and myself were directed to take with regard to the budget amendments. We did receive a memo from Councilman DePiero on behalf of the majority of the council directing us to place into the budget amendments the funding of the maintenance of parks, which would include 1 tree climber and 1 laborer position, and the second department would have been the police department, which would have been the reestablishment of 1 police officer, which was done in light of the discussion in executive session at the prior meeting, where we were directed by civil service to reestablish that 1 position. So that is what the budget amendment.
3 positions.
With 3 positions, that is what the budget amendment 2019-102 reflects this evening.
Okay, we need a motion.
Go ahead, Jim.
What? Oh, okay. R 2019-102, resolution to amend the 2019 introduced budget. Motion for the amendments to the budget.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes, before I make my vote, the tax rate to the residents, because we've added these 3 other positions, one that we were, I'm not going to say forced, but one that we had to make, and 2 that we presented. What will be the tax rate to our residents now?
3.27.
So then it's not 9%, the way it was presented on Facebook, that Carriffy Jr., DePiero, and myself are the team that is going to have a 9% tax. Thank you. I vote yes.
Miss McCarthy?
Well, you know, I have to say that if the council majority is serious about cutting expenses this year, it also had the choice to eliminate or postpone $5.3 million in capital projects, saving about $275,000 in interest. But it chose instead to cut 13 positions, or I think now it might be 11 positions. Interestingly, the 3 positions being cut are in the departments responsible to complete the $5.3 million in projects. And without the 3 positions, and I'll quote the department's director, there will be no new construction projects this year without the 3 positions. So it makes no sense. It's just, you know, we're spending and borrowing and there's no revenue. So I vote no for this.
Ms. Peterson?
I agree with what Mrs. McCarthy just said, and our business administrator laid out for us the long-term effects of these amendments. So we have directors in positions who direct us to do things. They tell us this is the staff that they need to accomplish the projects at hand. We have them up here and give them proclamations and tell them that they're wonderful, but when it matters, we tell them to do without. I can't support that when it is a smoke show to distract us from the long-term effects of not having a plan. I agree with the gentleman who came before us and said we are best intentioned. I absolutely agree with that. We all have our own best intentions in mind when we make these choices. But it is extraordinarily frustrating to me that somehow I am the one who's the fiscal responsibility person here, because it's crazy to me to think that at this point we can say that this book was opened and miraculously we found all of this extra money that the business administrator who we put here to do this job just didn't find. And when this budget comes back around next year and the year after, and everybody clutches their pearls about how did we get here, I want this night to be remembered. No.
Mr. Carriffy?
First off, I would like to say that during the budget process, we did cut one of the major capital projects. Some of the other capital projects that we left in, one was the resurfacing of one of the turf fields, which the Parks and Recs, Mr. Wall stated was in poor condition. So for the safety of the children and the people that use that field, we kept that in the budget. One of the other projects that's in the capital is for the cricket field, which a large population of our town has been looking for this field for many, many years. And so the funding for that project is part of that capital. These positions have not been filled. I understand that there are people in town going around and telling people that things won't be done now because of those positions not being filled. Well, these things have all been done without these positions being filled for quite some time now. You know, it was brought up by Mr. Homiak that, you know, it's $5 a month or whatever, but you have to also look at, you know, the governor's been coming up with all kinds of new taxes now, talking about another gas tax hike, a rain tax, all kinds of other taxes, which, guess what? They all get filtered down to us. So it's not just, we only control a very small portion of your taxes. Very small portion of your taxes. So in the whole scope of things, okay, we're just doing our due diligence and our part of the small part that we control. Okay, so in that whole scope of things and everything I talked about, I vote yes.
Motion passes.
Well, can I just say in response to that again, if there's not people talking about not doing the projects, it's the head of the department talking about not doing the projects and saying, if I don't have those 3 positions, there will be no new projects this year. So, I mean, this is, we want the cricket field, we want the turf field, but they're not going to be done.
Well, with all due respect, though, I don't think one employee is going to go out and build the entire cricket field
Well,
on his own.
let me just say that then you're objecting to what the department head says. He says he needs those 3 positions. So what are we supposed to say about the department head who's saying that he needs those 3 positions
So-
to
Well, no,
complete
he
these
got those
projects?
positions, though.
Well,
No, he
at-
didn't.
at
No, he got
this
2.
ti-
He got 2.
And he
So-
said he needs 3.
So at this time, I think.
I'll take it up with the department head and ask him if that one other position, if that one individual is going to go out and build the cricket field by
Well,
himself.
you don't have to ask him because I have
And-
his letter here.
And replace the turf field, which, when it comes to the safety of the kids, I think that, and the people that use that field, I think that should be a priority and not be on that one extra employee that we did not replace.
I think it's time now that we move on, as we've already voted, and the debate time has been over, so I think we need to move on as we have a long agenda.
Go ahead.
Resolution 2019-105, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany, adoption of the 2019 amended budget. Motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. This is a motion for resolution R 2019-105 to adopt the amended
Okay.
budget.
All right.
We've had a motion by Ms. Peterson and a second by Ms. Grignani. We went into roll. Mr. DePiero voted yes. Ms. Grignani voted yes, and you were up next for roll.
Okay, and in line with this, if we're talking about now 3.2%, 3.3%?
3.27.
3.27. So, 9.2% tax rate that's been talked about here balances the budget with no utility surplus, all right? So if you take a look back at the history from 2012 to 2017, the town spent $9.4 million more than it earned. And instead of assessing an adequate tax rate to pay the town's expenses, it took $9 million from the utility surplus. This avoided raising taxes and obscured the deficit. In 2010, sewer fees were reduced, and the utility revenue in surplus begins to decrease. As the town continues to take surplus, the utility incurs debt to cover its expenses, $15 million in debt and $2.5 million in interest. Today, the utility still incurs debt, only at a higher interest rate. So even though the town was taking more of the surplus and failing to raise revenue, in 2013 and again in 2017, the mayor proposed and the council approved 2 zero tax increases. For 2 years, no new revenue is generated when just the statutory expenses alone were $6 million. The deficit is steadily increasing. These decisions made by the town made the town dependent on the surplus. And that's why 2.9% tax increases are necessary, and the surplus runs out in 2024. It's not because of last year, as some would have you believe. It's inconceivable that a $9.4 million deficit happens in 1 year. It's because it's financially irresponsible to endlessly spend and borrow. You know, if any of us managed our finances this way, we'd soon be bankrupt. So if anyone is disappointed that taxes need to be raised, it's understandable. But direct that disappointment at the financial decisions made between 2012 and 2017. Cutting expenses alone won't recover $9.4 million deficit without substantial layoffs, loss of services, and eliminating improvement projects. Raising revenue makes the town less dependent on the surplus. A 4.7 tax increase that Council Member Peterson and I support begins to raise revenue and makes the town less dependent on the surplus. And a utility fee increase grows the surplus and reduces the cost of debt. That's a financially responsible recovery plan. Cutting 13 positions isn't. The proposed budget doesn't even come close to recognizing the seriousness of the town's finances or consider the financial harm it causes. 3.2% isn't even a good beginning to get the town back on sound financial footing. I'd like to ask the council president and the council members who served during those 6 years to share their plan with the rest of the council and the public about how they're going to recover $9.4 million deficit before the surplus runs out. And I hope it's not just cutting 11 positions. No.
Ms. Peterson?
In 2010, under the previous administration, a 9.4% tax increase was approved. We are now addicted to the surplus that runs out in 5 years. Twice the amount of time since a 9.4% tax increase was approved by the previous administration. No.
Mr. Carriffy?
Just for the record, I would like to state that I was not on the town council in 2010.
Neither was I.
Who was?
I was.
I vote yes.
Motion passes 3 votes to 2. The
But-
public hearing portion, by the way, is a typo, so please disregard that. That's coming up next. We'll go right into the ordinances. But I'm sorry, Mr. McCarthy, I think you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, but the majority of this council or members of this council were on the council and made these decisions between 2012 and 2017 to use the surplus so heavily instead of raising an adequate tax rate to just obscure the fact that enough wasn't being raised to cover expenses. So I'll end it there.
Ordinance 2019:11.
For the record, before you begin, Ms. Grignani, the supplemental debt statement, which is required for this ordinance, was filed in my office today. So just want to put that for the record. I apologize for interrupting.
Ordinance 2019:11. Bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $10,642,122, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $10,109,266 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage as a meeting to be held on May 21st, 2019 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson? No, Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. DePiero?
Again,
Ordinance
before you begin, Mr. DePiero, I apologize for interrupting. The supplemental debt statement, as required by law, for this ordinance was filed to my office today, just for the record.
Ordinance 2019:12. Bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the golf and recreational utility in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $205,391 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $205,391 bonds or notes of the Township to finance the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on May 21st, 2019, at 7:00 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes. For next ordinance is the last one. For this bond ordinance, a supplemental debt statement was required to be filed to my office. It was filed today for the record.
Ordinance 2019:14, bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the sewer utility in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $5,250,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $5,250,000 bonds or notes of the Township to finance the cost thereof. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on May 21st, 2019 at 7 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes, and let me say, this is money we could have paid through the surplus, perhaps.
Ms. Peterson?
Saved a lot of money.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Ordinance 2019:15, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code, repealing Article 32, Alternative Planned Residential Development 2 District. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on May 21st. That should be May 14, yes?
Correct. I was waiting to see who was going to catch that. All of
Yeah.
them are going to say May 14th because we had a change of date. Good catch, Ms. Peterson.
At 7 p.m. prevailing time or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2019:16, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code related to building height. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16th, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on May 14th, 2019, at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Before I go into roll call here, just want to make a recommendation, and I spoke with our legal counsel here and said that that is okay, that we can do this. As you can see, we have a ton of ordinances for first reading. So instead of reading the body, why don't we just read the title and then go directly into the motion to approve?
Correct.
That will expedite the situation.
Great.
Sure.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, so back into the roll call. We have a motion by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
So for the next ordinance, you just read the title and go directly to the motion.
No,
Okay.
I would suggest that we just read all of the titles.
And then do one motion.
Then do one motion for the aforesaid ordinances being offered.
Okay.
Okay, good. Even
Great.
better.
Okay.
Ordinance 2019:17, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code related to corner lot setback requirements for accessory structures.
Ms. McCarthy?
Ordinance 2019:18, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills related to critical slope regulations.
Ordinance 2019:19, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code related to maximum driveway width.
Ordinance 2019:20, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills related to signage.
Ordinance 2019:21, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code related to permitted conditional uses in the R2M district.
Ordinance 2019:22, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending the general zoning map to rezone properties located at Block 391, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, from the R-3 residential district to the B-3 local business district, and amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Township Code.
Ordinance 2019:23, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 430 zoning of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills related to permitted conditional uses in the R3, R4, and R5 districts.
Ordinance 2019:24, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 290, Parks, Recreation Areas, and Public Lands of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills.
Ordinance 2019:25, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 169, Fire Prevention of the Code of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills.
Ordinance 2019:26, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 4, Administration of Government of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills.
Now we have to do
Motion
this.
to approve.
If you don't mind, Ms. McCarthy, I'll go
No,
ahead and read that
please.
part. Okay, so we've read already 26, so I'm going to just read the final thing. Be it resolved that the above aforementioned ordinances be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on April 16, 2019, and that the said aforementioned ordinances be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on May 14th, 2019 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon as thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given opportunity to be heard concerning the above aforesaid ordinances. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise the above aforesaid ordinances with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. At this point, we'll take a motion to approve the above resolution.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
And thank you, Jim Lott, for expediting this.
Okay. Council President,
Yes.
one procedural issue. I would ask that the clerk be directed to refer the land use ordinances 2019-15 through 2019-23 to the planning board as required by law. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and do that.
Yep.
For these second readings, we can't expedite this, right? We have to
No,
do-
unfortunately, you can't. You have to have a
Those-
public hearing.
Just a
Those
point of
we-
clarity, thank you. Ordinance 2019-07, ordinance reappropriating $103,026.59 proceeds of obligations not needed for their original purposes in order to provide for roof repairs to the Department of Public Works building in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on March 25th, 2019. This ordinance was introduced at the March 19th, 2019 regular meeting. Motion to accept that the ordinance 2019-07 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yeah, oh,
and
sorry.
It's okay. Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
That was his fault, right? Public hearing 2019-07. Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2019-07 only.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only.
Seeing no one come forward, motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2019-07.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. A roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2019:08, bond ordinance providing a supplemental appropriation of $350,000 for supervisory control and data acquisition communication system upgrades in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, and authorizing the issuance of $350,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on March 25th, 2019. This ordinance was introduced at the March 19th, 2019 regular meeting. Motion to accept that ordinance 2019:08 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Public hearing 2019:08. Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2019:08 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one else.
Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2019:08 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes. Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Ordinance 2019:09, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $2,670,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,536,500 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. The notice for the ordinance above was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, on March 25th, 2019. This ordinance was introduced at the March 19th, 2019 regular meeting. Motion to accept that ordinance 2019:09 be heard in its second and final reading by title only.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2019:09.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one else.
Seeing no one come forward, I make a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2019:09.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, this is the non-consent agenda.
Yes.
Resolutions. R 2019-101, resolution of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, opposing New Jersey becoming a sanctuary city and resolving that Parsippany Township never becomes a sanctuary city. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero.
Just as a point of interest, should we read the entire resolution or just let it go this way?
That would be up to the council president, whether or not he wants to have the clerk read the entire resolution.
Go
It's
ahead.
not legally required.
What's that?
It's not legally required. You have a written copy of the resolution. It can be read by title.
Okay.
If you want to read the whole thing, that's up to council.
Do you want to read it, Mr. DePiero, or no?
That's all right. I think we'll get it published someplace anyway.
Go ahead. We had a motion.
And
We're on
seconded, and we're voting.
Yeah,
We're
we're
on
voting.
Okay, yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy.
Well, we already have an ordinance by the state that the town is following. I don't think anyone has proposed that Parsippany be a sanctuary city. I don't think it's an issue here. So I don't understand the reason for this resolution. And I don't think you can put never, I could be wrong, Mr. Lott, but I don't think this is binding to future councils as well.
Right. It's a sense of council resolution. It's always difficult to say never in government because future governing bodies can always change the policy direction of the township.
Yeah, and as I said, you know, we have a clear ordinance from the state that outlines what our police department is to follow in these cases. And it's specific, and it covers, I think, all of the
Okay.
issues that are necessary.
Now I'm going to
And-
request that I read it.
Now, to me, this is just, a solution looking for a problem, because it's not, to me, this is just grandstanding, so.
If I may clarify something, the
I'd like to-
Attorney General's guideline is just for what police are to enforce or not enforce. It really doesn't say anything about sanctuary cities. It's just what the AG is telling police. Basically, he has told the police departments not to help
Ice.
ICE.
Well, he says
that's
more
not
than
exactly
that.
correct.
That's not, yeah, okay.
That's not exactly
Well,
correct.
in-
If ICE...
For the most part.
Well, if ICE were to come to town and say that we have a wanted criminal in your township that is also an undocumented alien, we're going to help that person, because I don't want violent criminals running around in our township, and I'll help the government do whatever we have to do. That's in the statute. I mean,
Right.
we're not giving...
Certain levels of crimes.
Right, we're not giving comfort to criminals.
Go ahead, Mr. DePiero.
Well, perhaps I should read it then, so we clarify it to the public. Resolution of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, opposing New Jersey becoming a sanctuary state and resolving that Parsippany Township never becomes a sanctuary city. Whereas Governor Phil Murphy's appointed Attorney General, Gruber Gruel, issued a so-called Immigrant Trust Directive that severely limits state, county, and local law enforcement from cooperating with federal ICE agents, effectively making New Jersey a sanctuary state. And whereas cities throughout the nation and within this state have declared that they are sanctuary cities. And whereas a sanctuary state means that the state of New Jersey would welcome illegal immigrants, even those who have committed additional serious crimes, and in turn threaten public safety and put our communities and residents at risk. And whereas Governor Murphy and the New Jersey legislature have enacted legislation providing millions of dollars in taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal and undocumented immigrants. And whereas Parsippany Township Council opposes New Jersey becoming a sanctuary state, as New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the nation, and the governor in the state of New Jersey and New Jersey legislature should be more concerned with reducing spending and property tax reduction for the legal residents and taxpayers of the state of New Jersey. And whereas the governing body of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills shall continue to put the needs of the residents of Parsippany first, and thereby declares Parsippany Township shall never be a sanctuary city. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, as follows. 1. That the Township Council strongly opposes New Jersey becoming a sanctuary state and urge Governor Murphy and the New Jersey legislature to re-evaluate their positions with regard to New Jersey becoming a sanctuary state. 2. That Parsippany Township shall never become a sanctuary city. 3. That the Township Clerk shall send the certified copy of this resolution to the Governor of New Jersey and members of the 21st, 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th legislative districts.
There are two things wrong with this resolution, straight off, which we could have issues with. First of all, the third whereas, a sanctuary state means the state of New Jersey would welcome illegal immigrants. Here's the part that's a problem. Even those who have committed additional serious crimes, we're not welcoming people who have committed serious crimes. That is not in the Attorney General's mandate. That is not what we are paying our township police officers to do. We are paying them to catch people who commit serious crimes.
But
Okay, so that's wrong. Hold on. There's a second part. I don't know if this is just semantics, but you're calling Parsippany shall never be a sanctuary city. Last I heard, we were a township.
unless you vetted everyone who comes here, you wouldn't know which ones have committed serious crimes.
Oh, what? What? What do you mean?
Unless you have vetted all the illegals that come here, you won't know which ones have committed serious crimes.
So you want the police to vet everyone in town?
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Oh, okay, so what did you say? I'm asking you to
I'm
just-
saying when people do migrate here and that are illegal, you don't know what their background is.
what their background is. I don't
Whether they have a
understand.
criminal record or not.
So how does this?
But I think there's two different things here. That you have an AG's guideline for law enforcement. What he is putting restrictions on what local law enforcement and county law enforcement and state law enforcement can assist with ICE. That's one aspect. This
Right.
is to an ordinance for Parsippany not becoming a sanctuary town.
It's a
City.
resolution.
So there's a
resolution.
resolution. So there's two different things here. One, people
I-
are referring to the AG's guideline in what law enforcement can do to assist with illegals.
I would highly recommend more clarification on this resolution, but that's your vote.
So,
Look, I am the police director also, and you're asking us to enforce something that is fuzzy, okay? I like to make sure that when I'm discussing things with the chief, that the chief is giving clear and precise direction to our police officers. This is fuzzy. This cannot be a gray area. This cannot be fuzzy. You need to define this, and it needs to be a lot clearer.
In other
Okay.
words, you want this to be as clear as Attorney General Goober's orders, right?
I would like it clearer, and,
Okay.
perhaps you should have had someone write this besides, your South Jersey political consultant.
hey, so at this point, we had a motion by Ms. McCarthy and a second by Mr. DePiero. We went into roll call. We're going to do it again because I lost track of the roll. So, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Miss McCarthy.
Yes. No, I'm not saying yes, I'm saying yes to you.
Yeah, you voted no, and then Miss Peterson.
Mr. DiPiero, when Mr. Venezia came before us and
But
suggested...
before we get into the thing, just for my role, is it a yes or a no, real quick, just so I know what's next?
It's a no.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When Mr. Venezia came before us moments ago and suggested that we propose an ordinance to prohibit pilots going forward, you stated we cannot bind future councils. And in this resolution, it says Parsippany shall never become a sanctuary city, therefore binding future councils. That's one. Two, I would recommend that we table this until it is clarified, to be more in line with something that the governor will pay attention to. And three, I'm not going to assume to understand the history of everyone's last name, but just by looking around, I don't see any strictly Lenape names. So in deference to my great-grandparents who left Ireland, not because everything was going great, but because they believed in the promise of the United States, and if we heard the stories widely of what people are fleeing, I would expect all of us to extend at least a modicum of compassion rather than slamming the door and saying, sorry, we're full.
And that is a no, Miss Peterson.
That
correct?
would be a no, yes.
Are you making a motion to table this?
Well, we already
The
have a
vote is
vote on it.
complete.
We already have a vote on
Well, you
it.
can
No,
make. I mean, a motion. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, a motion to table overrides this motion. So if you are making that motion, that has to come up. This is according to Robert's rules, and then we'd have to go for that, and then we'd have to come back to this again. So are you making a motion to table or no?
Well, I just want to correct the clerk. I don't think council's ever adopted Robert's rules.
Oh no, they have.
Have they?
Yes, absolutely. By resolution, the beginning of the year.
I haven't seen a copy of that.
Beginning of the year,
and-
but I'll show you a copy.
And you have an affirmative vote of 3-2.
Well, no, I haven't voted.
No, he
You
hasn't
have not
voted yet.
I'm
I haven't
sorry.
voted.
He has
I'm
not
sorry.
voted yet. But generally, that's what would happen. But okay, so Mr. Carriffy?
Okay, before I vote, having been a law enforcement officer for a very long time, I have dealt with some of these individuals. I have no problem with people coming to our country to try to improve their lives, but do it the right way. That's the key here. Do it the right way. Come here, go through the system, get vetted, do it the right way, become a U.S. citizen the right way, not the illegal way. There have been many people that have come here that circumvent the proper way of doing things, and a lot of them do that for a specific reason, so that they are not turned away or they are not documented so that they can get away with certain things. Again, nothing wrong with people coming here and doing it the right way and becoming a U.S. citizen legally. But illegally, the word is self-explanatory, illegal. So I vote yes.
Motion passes 3 votes to 2.
Mr. President, please.
Yes.
My husband is a first-generation American. His father came here from Italy, became an American citizen. He came here legally, and we are very proud of that. In all due respect to your grandparents, most of us have either grandparents or parents who are immigrants that came to this country because where they came from, whether they be Irish, Italian, German, etc., they came here for a better life, which this country affords each and every one of us. But come here the right way. Don't come here illegally.
you know, I understand what everyone's saying, but we don't have a problem here. I don't think that the mayor has ever supported the town being a sanctuary city. So this just seems to me like I don't know why we're even talking about this. There's been no discussion in this town about it being a sanctuary city. The other issues that you're talking about, we can talk about these. We can go on and talk about these. Pass immigration. I mean, if the country is really concerned about this, pass an immigration law. But the same people who object to these sanctuary cities don't want an immigration law. And we can go on and on about that. You know, we know, everybody knows where illegal immigrants are, and they're not taken out of, they're not arrested, or they're not, law enforcement doesn't address them, and ICE doesn't address them because it's financially, for large corporations, it would really hurt them. So we don't address it for those reasons too. But that's a different issue. This is a sanctuary, this isn't a sanctuary city, it never has been. The mayor never talked about it being a sanctuary city. So this is just, for whatever reason, I have no idea.
Can I also just put out there that using language like they and them and otherizing large groups of people, from a public relations perspective, you may want to rethink your choice of words.
Because I guess my grandparents came here from Italy, and they used to call them they and them and whatever else. Italians need not apply.
May I?
Okay, Ms. Pearson, good.
Resolution 2019-103, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills approving an emergency agreement with freshwater well and pump service P.O. Box 468, Frenchtown, New Jersey 08825 for pump and equipment replacement at well 1A. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2019-104. Resolution of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills in the County of Morris, New Jersey, authorizing an emergency appropriation pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-48 in the amount of $900,000 to fund various improvement to the water utility. Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
This is also money that could have come from the surplus, yes?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Consent agenda, be it resolved that all items listed with an asterisk are routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's the last one, right?
Payroll and bills list.
Payroll bill.
Approval of payroll and bill list. CFO Ancucci recommends authorization of payment, authorization of the April 19th, 2019 regular and miscellaneous payroll, estimated at $1,700,000. Payment of the bills from the voucher list, 32919, totaling $10,507,116.04.
Mr. President?
Yes.
In looking at the bills payment, on page 6, we have a fundraiser for Gertrude Hawk Chocolates for $1,550. Is this for the Easter Bunny coming this week for the children?
Yes, that's exactly what that's for.
Thank you.
So,
Chocolate
we have a,
second,
mo-
sorry, sorry.
We have a
It was
motion.
last week.
we have a motion
We have a
by
motion by
Ms.
Ms.
McCarthy,
McCarthy.
and we never
Second.
had a second.
Sorry,
Second
second.
by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy, Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson, Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
All right. Now we need the closed session agenda resolution to be read.
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss 1, Manor Lake subdivision, 2, litigation, attorney-client privilege, Carifi 4, 3, attorney-client privilege, contract negotiation, Henry Street. And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to adjourn into closed session for the public. We are not going to be taking any action.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
Okay, and now we need a
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson.
Yes.
We're adjourned. Have a good night.
Motion adjourned.
Easter, everybody.